So the Eagles are making trades, and they just made one. We got a little bit of Eagles breaking news happening right as I was uploading this video. I want to talk about first before the video starts. Jeff Mosher wrote this. The Pound Eagles announced they traded defensive lineman Kentavius Street and a 2025 7th-round pick to the Atlanta Falcons for a 2024 6th-round pick. Now, these are just basically late pick swaps. Jeff Mosher goes on to say that the Eagles are going to have to create a roster spot, whether it's Cam Jurgens returning, whether you're going to keep Julio Jones elevated from the practice squad, or if you're going to make a trade. So it sounds like Howie's doing some roster stuff, getting things ready, and we'll see if it leads to a trade tomorrow. But Kentavius Street is gone. That's not a big surprise. The Eagles are so stocked at the defensive tackle position that I think they're going to be okay, and probably a good sign that Jalen Carter will be ready to go. Now, let's start this video. So as we get ready for Dallas this upcoming week, the Seattle Seahawks just sent us a warning shot. And all I can say is this: message received, response incoming. Dallas still stinks. Yo, by the way, King Dingbat here. Hope everybody's having a great day. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're hanging in there. Shots fired. Shots fired from Seattle. You cannot overlook what the Seattle Seahawks just did, because the next 24 hours, the NFL is going to be fascinating to see what happens with the trade deadline approaching. Our Eagles, we know, are buyers at 7-1, and it is going to be very interesting. And we've got the biggest game of the year coming up this week, and we need key players back. We're going to find out where they are in a second. But before we do that, if you're new to the channel and you like the content, make sure you hit that like button. More importantly, make sure you subscribe to the most censored, the most throttled Eagles content creator in all of the internet. If you've been subscribed for a while, I just want to thank you so much for all the support you give to me. It really means a lot. Even the trolls and the haters out there, I love you. Thank you so much. Really. Now, before we get into what Seattle just did, because I think Seattle just made a huge statement. I think they just fired shots across our bow, so to speak, and we're going to see what our response is. But Zach Berman said this during Nick Sirianni's press conference. There's hope that Cam Jurgens returns to practice this week per Nick Sirianni. Jalen Carter feels better today, and the Eagles need to see how he is on the field. And then Grant Calcaterra, you always have to operate with caution with head injuries, but that will be even more pronounced with Calcaterra's given history in college. Concussion for Calcaterra, he's had them in the past, so obviously they've got to be really, really cautious with him. Hopefully he'll be fine. As far as the other two guys, I bring those guys up, and I think it's important to talk about because they are so important for us going into this week, okay? If you can get Cam Jurgens back, I think that'll help the line a lot. I think it's been a noticeable drop-off with Opeta since Cam Jurgens went out. He played good. They played good against the Rams, but I think Opeta kind of struggled with the Jets, with Miami, and with Washington yesterday. You get Cam Jurgens back at right guard, I think that'll be a big thing for us. Then Jalen Carter, hurt back, went out of the game yesterday versus Washington. His presence was felt when he wasn't there. You could tell how big of an impact he is for the Philadelphia Eagles. We need Jalen Carter out there. He changes the whole thing, as well as Jordan Davis. And I'll keep saying this, and eventually people will catch up with what I'm saying. Kind of like Kenneth Gainwell. People are starting to see what I've been talking about with Kenneth Gainwell since week 1. But Jordan Davis is so underrated, it's not even funny. I mean, it's not even funny. I'm not even exaggerating. We hear about, the Eagles felt when Jalen Carter wasn't in. We know Jalen Carter's great, but Jalen Carter's out versus Washington. We can tell we're missing his presence. That's all true. And Jalen Carter deserves every ounce of credit he gets. He is the best defensive tackle, I think, already in football. He is. But you can't like erase, you can't like hide what Jordan Davis means to this defensive line as well. But Jordan Davis is that good, okay? It reminds me almost like, and I guess I don't want it to become where, like, growing up, Byron Evans was a great middle linebacker, I thought. I thought he was a vastly underrated linebacker. And even to this day, you don't hear people mention Byron Evans a lot, along with Clyde Simmons, Reggie, Jerome, Seth Joyner, and even Clyde Simmons, it was the same thing when he played Reggie White on the other side. Oh, well, he gets his sacks because you have Reggie and you have Jerome Brown. And once those guys left and weren't there anymore, Clyde Simmons went out there and still was getting 17, 18 sacks, and people realized that wasn't true. I feel that way about Jordan Davis. I feel like people are kind of just saying, well, it's Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis is good, but he's just that other guy. I think Jordan Davis makes a huge, huge impact. Just had to get that out there, okay? So we'll see where all those guys are. Now, Jordan Davis did play yesterday, but it was very limited. He didn't play a whole lot. And I think you could tell, especially in the run game. So, hopefully those guys are going to play. This is the most important game of the year for us. This game is bigger than the Buffalo game, the Kansas City game, even the 49ers game. This is a division game. You've got to win this game. You win this game, you go 2.5 games up on Dallas. And Dallas, let me tell you, they're already starting with their excuses. Mark Holmes is already starting with his bull crap. All right? You want me to come on and do a little thing with you, Mark, a segment, a show, whatever? I'm down. Let's make it happen. But one thing about the Eagles is they have the best record in the league. They're 7-1, and you got to wonder who's really the competitors in the conference you have to worry about. We've talked so much about San Francisco. All of a sudden, San Francisco goes from 5-0 to 5-3. Okay, they're 2 games back. You got Detroit, who plays tonight. There'll be, maybe if they win, which they probably will, there'll be 1 game back. And the team we can't sleep on we can't sleep on this team at all, is the Seattle Seahawks. They're actually in first place now that the Niners lost, and they just went out and made a statement. They just shot across our bows, man. Pause. But here's what Ian Rappaport said. The Giants are finalizing a deal to send Pro Bowl defensive lineman Leonard Williams to the Pound Seahawks, per me and Mike Garofalo, giving them financial flexibility. I believe the Giants were willing to eat some of that money, okay? And here's what the Seahawks traded. They traded a 2024 second-round pick and a 2025 fifth-round pick. So 2 picks got them Leonard Williams, who probably is the Giants' best player. Definitely on defense, but he's probably their best player. Shows you that the Giants are pretty much done. They're selling. I expect that team to quit on them during the season. It's going to get real ugly in New York. And will New York trade Saquon Barkley? That'll be a very interesting thing. But what this deal by the Seahawks says is that the Seahawks believe they can win now. They could believe that they can win now, and they believe they can get home field advantage. Now, we play Seattle in Seattle later in the year, okay? And it makes me a little bit uneasy, being that we always struggle against Seattle in Seattle. It's like one of those things, like playing Washington. It's going to be close. They have beaten our butts in Seattle, and I think they're for real. I think especially if the Seattle Seahawks get home field advantage, they're much like the Philadelphia Eagles. Nobody's going to Seattle and beating them. Unless maybe it's the Eagles. But, I think it's going to be very hard. So home field is very important. Seattle just made a statement saying that they are in and that they think they can beat the Eagles and they can get to the Super Bowl. You know what? They've got a chance. They've got a chance to be the team we're going to play in the NFC Championship game, because I believe we're getting there. I also believe that the Eagles made their move to get Kevin Byard. Now the Seahawks are making their move. I think the Eagles, we got to make another move. I think there's a move to still be made, okay? I really do. Now, one thing I do want to bring up, and I want to talk about Kevin Byard, because a lot of people were kind of on Kevin Byard, give him a lot of grief. Well, why is Byard out there and he ain't doing anything, and why did we trade him? Like, the guy has been there 1 week. He's trying to learn and adjust. You've got to give him time. But I'm telling you, it is going to work out with this guy. By December, this secondary is going to be much better. And there was a quote because they asked him about how he felt and stuff like that. And I loved what he said. I love the responsibility he takes, and he's already taken in that secondary. He's like taking ownership. I think he'll be the quarterback of the secondary especially once you get into December and Cowboys choke season. It'll happen. Here's what he said yesterday, BYARD, about being there and being in the game. He says, "Obviously, I just got here this week, but the way the game ended, I would never apologize. We should never apologize for winning in this league. Thank you so much for saying that." Because people act like, oh, you won, but it doesn't count because you didn't win by enough. No. You win. A win is a win is a win, okay? He says, it's very hard to do winning. He goes, but as our secondary back seven, we have to be better 100%. He knows they have to be better. He knows that they got a lot of work to do, and I like the way he's approaching it. I like his ownership he's already taken of that secondary. You give this man a few weeks, he's going to start making big impacts. Now, how long is it going to take? I don't know. You got this game versus Dallas, then you're going to get a bye week. I think once you get into December, late December, I think you'll start to see BYARD start to really, show, his talents. Just got to give him a little bit of time. I mean, look what one extra week with Julio Jones turned into a big touchdown. So it will happen, okay? Now, as far as the trade deadline goes tomorrow, I'm probably going to be streaming. I will be streaming tomorrow. I'm making plans at work to come home early so I can come home and stream the last few hours of the trade deadline. Hopefully something will go down. I think the Eagles should send a response to Seattle. I think they need to make a trade. I think they need a few areas that they should definitely try to go out and get. Okay, I like the idea that you go out and still try to get a pass rusher. I don't think you can ever have enough. I think that the Eagles can use another pass rusher to rotate in. I think that would be a great position to get. I think a corner would be a great position to get if you get another defensive back. They need it. And then I think the running back is really, after watching yesterday and watching Kenneth Gainwell, I think it's so important, okay? Elliot Shore Parks wrote this, 4 potential running back targets. By the way, Leonard Fournette signing with the Buffalo Bills, so he's off the market. I'm not really big deal or really concerned about that, because if the Eagles wanted him, they would have gotten him a while ago. But here are some possible running backs that the Eagles could go after. He wrote this, 4 potential running back targets for the Eagles. These running backs check these boxes. 1, they're on a bad team. 2, on a cheap or expiring deal. 3, likely not to be back on the current team in 2024 and could be helpful right away. Now, one of the guys that we have talked probably the most about in terms of a running back and Eagles going out and getting him is Derrick Henry. And one of the issues, or one of the things that naysayers say is, well, he costs too much. He would cost you too much. I think his salary cap was like $16 million going into the year. But if the Eagles were to trade for him, the truth of the matter is the Eagles would only have to pay, or it would only cost the Eagles $5 million in cap space. Only $5 million. And you're saying, how could that possibly be, Philly? Well, people forget oftentimes when you go to Over the Cap or wherever and you see the cap number, you forget that when you talk about the trade deadline, you're talking about 7 weeks in which he was with Tennessee. Okay, so he's basically played half the season with the Titans. So that number comes way down. It's prorated. And it would turn out that it would be $5 million in cap space. The Eagles can afford that. There's no question about it. Okay, I'm probably going to try to get one more video out talking about some of the guys I think we should go for before the trade deadline. It'll be out either late tonight or early in the morning. But I am going to talk about these running backs just for a second. If the Eagles do choose to go running back, and I think that would be a great move if they could do it, here are 4 potential targets. 1, Derrick Henry. 2, Josh Jacobs, which would be a very good pickup and a very good complementary piece to go along with DeAndre Swift. Then you have James Conner, who's hurt. That's the problem with him. He's out for multiple weeks, so I don't know if that would actually work. But if he's healthy and if you could play him, he would also be a good fit to go with the Eagles. And then you have Saquon. Now, the Giants are in sell mode, right? Will they ship Saquon Barkley out? I don't know. But to me, at this point, if you're the Giants, you gotta. I gotta think that even though you've given Daniel Jones a big contract, you've got to move on, right? You've got to be looking for your franchise quarterback of the future. And if that's the case, by the time you get a guy and he's ready, Saquon's starting to get older now. I think the Giants should trade him, but they probably won't do it to an NFC East rival. That's definitely almost 100%. But those 4 running backs would all fit perfect with the Eagles. I don't want to bring in a running back to replace DeAndre Swift. I'm not looking at that. I'm not looking for a guy to be the number 1 guy. I'm looking for a complementary piece with DeAndre Swift. Somebody to take over Kenneth Gainwell's role. That's what I want to do. I want Swift in there, and whoever it is, whether it's a Derrick Henry, whether if they went and got A.J. Dillon or something like that. The Eagles need to keep using DeAndre Swift. They need to use him more, in my opinion, but they have to get a piece that can help them. And maybe that's just Penny bringing him up. I don't know. But the trade deadline is in 24 hours, less than 24 hours now, probably. But the Seattle Seahawks just made a statement that they're going all in, and they just acquired a really good piece at the defensive tackle position. A lot of people thought and were surprised when Seattle passed on Jalen Carter. Well, they just fixed that problem, and they're probably our biggest rival right now for that NFC championship and that home field advantage. So I think with 24 hours left, maybe just a little less, a little more, depending when this video's out, Eagles need to make one more move. I think we got one more move in us. I expect something to happen, and the question is what it's going to be. Do you try to compete somewhat with what Seattle did? Do you just ignore it, or do you just tweak your roster a little bit? That's going to be the question. That's what we're going to find out. And I do want to come out with one more video. I'm going to try, and I will, like I said, I will be streaming tomorrow. Okay, so I will be streaming in the afternoon, so we will be watching the trade deadline live. However, I do want to put out a video talking about some of the guys I want. Many of you guys already know some of the guys I want, but hopefully there's a couple guys that we're hearing about late that may be available. With that said, take care. Talk to you later. Of course, don't be a dingbat. Remember, it's how we vision. We're all just living in it. So I know what you're probably saying. You're saying, Philly, man, we just talked about the trade deadline and stuff like that. We got Dallas this week. When are we going to talk about Dallas? The Cowboy fans are already starting. Mark Holmes already trying to debate. Mark Holmes is already revising history. I truly believe this. If Dak Prescott went out and threw 8 touchdowns, threw for 500, 600 yards, had the perfect game at quarterback, and Dallas lost, I think he could live with it. I actually think he would be okay with it as long as Dak Prescott plays good. What the things I hear, what he's saying already, leading up to this game is crazy. So he said that the Dallas Cowboy game this week with the Eagles is the most important game that Dallas has played since the 90s. All right. We've got to hold them to that, because when they get their ass kicked and they lose, what he's going to do is he's going to try to act like, well, it's just one game. Don't let him off the hook. We are not letting them off the hook. We are not letting them revise history, and we are not letting them set what the debate guidelines are. We're going to talk about what we want. With that said, Denzel Washington out.